All right, we're live, and I thought about talking about Bill C-16. So we've actually tried to find some sources for people who want to watch the debate that is with Jordan Peterson and actually Theron Meyer. They can actually watch the links below. We're gonna go and just talk a little bit through. I have two guests, Archon and Knights here. We're going to talk about a little bit about it. Um, before we actually go and dissect the actual text, which we have actually found. What do you so far from what you've gathered? What do you think of BC 16 so far?
Well, not to sing to the choir, but it's obviously not a very good bill. It's far too broad and it's far too correcting. Like, even as someone who's generally for government myself, like jailing people over misgendering, like they might as well jail people for calling people assholes now or cunts, etc., etc., etc. You are rude to someone, go to jail.
Yeah, that's my view on it too. Like, it's not even an issue of like, oh, you're going to jail because you harassed someone. It's basically like, oh, you were really rude. We're gonna call that harassment now, and now you're gonna go to jail. And it's like, I'm sorry, you can't just redefine things like that. That's not how this shit works.
Well, it
Well,
unfortunately can be, but I
Yeah,
mean, the main point, the
not
main
how it
point,
should work, I guess is what I should say.
the main. I mean, really, the main point, the main point, and what the criticism seems to be is that it's far too loose. It's trying to define harassment. Like, I could see cases where misgendering someone, like if you purposely like stepped into someone's face and like started calling someone who is trans by their um, former identity, I guess you could call it, and wielding a knife, well then fine, that is harassment. But you know,
yeah, but that should go under the harassment law
yeah,
a hate crime, not under making a whole new thing out of it. What I think of this is I think Theron also said this during her hearing, was that she didn't actually have anything against like symbolic and gestures and trying to help the transgender community, but none of them were actually elected on behalf of the transgender community, and it's 0.3 percentage of the entire world population. So it's a very small minority, and
yeah,
they now get to dictate. I mean, we've seen this now in New York. Sweden is right. My neighbor. I'm scared as fuck. It's gonna come over here, and now it's in Canada, where basically it's a thought crime and a hate crime if you use a wrong pronoun. Now I
Well,
can get if
it's not a thought crime. It's not a thought crime. That's not the same thing.
true. It's, sorry, I misspoke, but
well, it was semantics, really.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, keep going.
So how I look at it is, what people are gonna do, they're just gonna avoid them. I mean, if you're gonna go to an interview on knowing that this law is there, and you're scared as fuck going to jail or being fined, they're not gonna risk paying fines or going to jail just because you forget to call
Well,
someone he because
so it goes
he or
further
she
than that, I feel,
preferred.
with the businesses too, because I feel that the managers and all this stuff that are going to be in charge of hiring are going to think, not only is this a problem for me if I happen to misspeak, but it's going to be a problem for my other workers if they happen
Yeah.
to, hold a belief different than they do. Because I mean, you're not able to control everyone's beliefs in the work setting. There's going to be some friction in terms of that. There's going to be arguments. I mean, you try and reduce it as much as possible, but you can't be everywhere at once. So I mean, what happens when these two people are talking at work, and then some person that happens to be trans is walking by, and those two people talking about a subject happen to like despise trans people. Whether they know this person is trans or not, they could go, "Oh my God, that's really offensive," and they were talking about this really offensive shit. I'm gonna report them to the police for like hate thoughts and shit. Because like if the conversation was like, "Fuck that, I'm not calling anyone Z or Zer" or something like that, and like in that very specific conversation, like they'd be thinking, "Oh shit, I could lose a lot of workers just because of someone's hurt feelings."
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
this is kind
well,
of the same. This is kind of a similar case with sexual harassment in the United States. I remember reading some news reports where bosses were actively and even like teachers were like leaving their door open during office hours when meeting with female students and colleagues because they were worried that behind closed doors. There would be no other witness to what was happening, and like avoiding their female coworkers because they didn't want to it made them fear the people when they were absolutely just normal people with they just happened to be female and have certain
right.
laws surrounding them.
Yeah. Now, the one situation where I can kind of understand a little bit of the legislation in this, but this is a very, very specific situation, and I don't even know if there's like a specific law determining this, like just in general. But like, let's say a trans person is in a bar or just some other kind of like public area, and it's a known spot for like people who like let's say it's like either KKK or a group similar to like KKK that is like openly against trans people, and they will like kill them on sight if they find out you're trans or something like that. So and some person that happens to know the person that's trans is also in the bar and happens to go, "Oh hey, Greg, even though it looks like a woman, how's it going? How is your post-operation surgery?" Really loudly. And it's quite clear that if you talk that loud or something like that, and you know where you are, whoa, shit, you're kind of in that like gray area. That's kind of fucked up. She could get hurt or something. But like this is on par with like someone in an American, someone that's a spy for the American government, and they're spying on, let's say, like the Iraqi government or something like that, and some random person that's in the army or whatever and knows this guy is a spy. "Hey, how did that operation go last time with the president of Iraq or whatever?" Like, holy shit, they're going to get arrested and probably tortured and killed in that situation. But I mean, like, I don't really know of any litigation that could come against the guy that's like, "Hey, this is a spy," besides, like, I mean, there's probably is something like, um, like tampering with an investigation or like espionage or something like that. I'm not sure, but
Well,
like
it kind of goes back to the point of being rude. Like that might, I mean, there could be cases where it could be considered harassment, but the more likely the case that could be considered harassment is like if you, I don't know, it's like if you like in the United, if like if you drive by someone, if you drive by someone's house that is trans, and like like he every single day, that might make the person feel unsafe because that
that just
is
makes me think of a retarded witch like giggling.
well,
You get that right,
she then, or or something like that, obviously they know the situation, and obviously they're going out of their way to not to express
antagonize
their
someone. Yeah.
disapproval in a more virulent way than usual. that could be considered harassment. But in that case, you could make a bill that simply states that, or not even make a law. Just make that part of police protocol and say, yeah, you can get arrested for harassment under these conditions.
Right.
The way I look at it, it's just gonna hurt, especially when you're gonna punish people for and making this as a separate thing to everything else. So when New York, there was a teacher that got $60,000 for being misgendered. Now, I don't know everything about the case, but knowing the law, I mean, she could have probably, he or she, or whatever this person identifies as, could have gotten up to $250,000. So it may just, as I said, it may just deter people from hiring and being around these people, because it's basically doing a separation. Even though the intentions may be good, you can't excuse like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that doesn't defend a shitty bill that's written in such a bad way. So I think we can actually go through the bill itself. Let's see. There. Let's see. Here we go. Can you guys see this? Present to
yes,
everyone. Yeah. All right. So we have. Should we go with the third reading or just with both of them?
Third reading would be the most accurate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, most current.
Let's see. We can let's read a little bit about this and dissect what it actually says. Summary. This enactment amends the Canadian Human Rights Act to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds of discrimination. The enactment also amends the criminal code to extend protection against hate propaganda set out in the act to any section of the public that is distinguished by gender identity or expression, and to clearly set out that evidence that an offense was motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on gender identity or expression constitutes an aggravating circumstance that a court must take into consideration when it imposes a sentence. Well, this doesn't really explain anything. This is a summary. An act to amend the Canadian Human Rights Act and the Criminal Code, a majority by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Canadian Human Rights Act. Let's take each paragraph and dissect this. Section 1 of the Canadian Human Rights Bill is replaced by the following purpose. The purpose of this act is to extend the laws in Canada to give effect within the purview of matters coming within the legislative authority of Parliament to the principle that all the individuals should have an opportunity equal with other individuals to make themselves the lives that they are able and wish to have, and to have their needs accommodated, consistent with their duties and obligations as members of society, without being hindered or prevented from doing so by discriminatory practices based on race, national, ethnic, or religion, age, sex, sexual or granted, or in respect a record suspension has been ordered.
This rhetoric, this really reminds me of Title IX in a way, that it's written in a way that's kind of vague and generic, makes it sound like it's neutral legislation, but then obviously isn't neutral legislation when it comes to enforcement.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, the gender, the issue I take, like gender identity, I can accept because, because it's such a small minority, and you can actually change genders, which is 0.3% around that, and but the expression part is why is that added to it in there? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's really difficult to suddenly just change how you express your gender. Um, I guess the
Well,
closest you could get to changing your gender expression would be to actually get the surgery, but beyond that, like how you express your gender is kind of hard to change.
well, and I mean that opens up the another can of worms. But they could. I mean, legally speaking, it actually until this entire mess, it was there was actually a semi-competent system surrounding it where you could be diagnosed as transgender, but I mean you had to go actually get doctor's notes about it, and then you could start, and only then, when they confirmed that you had the condition, could you then go and get your documentation amended and everything. And at that point, you're probably already dressing differently, and you're probably already working on your social situation to try and make yourself more comfortable among your associates, etc. Like, there are steps that people are just really getting lazy about it, and it's like, if you seriously have the condition, then there's only so many ways. You go about expressing it. Like, you don't, like, it's just really lazy what these
I mean,
trenders are doing.
let me scroll up again. And when you take expression into, like, say if you have a uniform at a workplace, but your gender expression to wear that uniform, what the fuck are you supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah, and there are situations like that. There are situations like that as well. But
See,
there,
and what if you have yeah, well, again, I'm just gonna give you
So
a
actually, hold
slightly
on.
different example.
Hold on.
It's
Let me kind of go to like, yeah, that's actually an interesting idea. What happens if a woman is trying to become a man and identifies as a male? Or I'm sorry, reverse that. A man is trying to become a female and identifies as a female, but because of a school's policies that it bases off of biology, you must wear a reverse sex, uh, clothing. So it basically the trans person looks like a woman and has breasts because of like hormones or surgery, etc., and then is wearing like male clothes that are either baggy or don't properly cover up parts of her body, depending on what the uniform is, I'm sure. And it's like, what do you do about that? Not only that, but that would also make them go into the boys' bathroom. You
well,
know?
the funny thing with like dress codes and all of that is the whole idea of gendering clothing altogether is like, that is actually that is actually social in nature. That isn't really biological. So it's kind of two, they're kind of two sides of the same coin going on. Like, um, there are such things as kilts. There are such things as pantsuits for women. You know, it's not necessarily the case where these overly strict dress codes are. That's the issue of the dress
uh,
codes themselves, and both
Hold on,
these
hold
people.
on,
Yeah.
hold on. I meant that the school bases their decision of what you wear off of your biology, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah. Well, yes.
As in, the school says you were born as a male, you wear a male's uniform. I don't care what you look like, type of thing. I'm not saying that like the society determines what kind of clothes they're wearing. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, and well, in the school and the school. Well, okay, and I was getting off point there, but even then, it would be equally easy for the student to go to court then and say that, well, this is the school's policy, but the school's policy ignores, like let's say it was a male to female, and they wanted to wear a skirt to school, and they could and they so they really, in my mind, the solution should be they should be able to go to court and then point to the existence of the kilt and say, look, even men can wear skirts.
Right, but I guess it depends on what kind of school we're talking about here, because if it's a private college, they might not be able to go to court over it.
Yeah, I guess.
So, I mean, let's give me another example. If you're at a let's say restaurant, and the code of having clothes on, which you have signed to adhere to, which is you have the females having maybe a dress or skirts or whatever, and the man having a suit, a tie, maybe a nice shirt and pants. Under this gender expression, would you be able then to suddenly just sue, or is this suddenly discrimination? Like, it's too vague of a thing.
Well, it should be more specific. Like you could call it discrimination, but rather than discrimination becoming, ending in, a sum of money being given to the offended party, it would simply be a policy change or something like that. Like,
I don't think you should be able to. I don't think you should be able to go to a fucking court to make a private business change their policy, though.
Especially if you chose to work for that business, knowing their uniform policies.
Right, because most businesses will give you rules that you have to follow before you actually start the job, and
they should
most
really
likely
be
that would begin with business.
But what overrides what? Does the legal documentation that you have to adhere to the policy, or does this human rights document see that? Like, where does the line go?
Yeah, see, that's the problem. We don't know if this human rights thing supersedes other people's rights when they own a business, because obviously a person has the right to create a business with sans like law breaking, like, oh, this business allows you to kill people. Like, obviously, unless they're saying that, you can pretty much like make people wear whatever they like. The only time that's an exception is where like businesses require you to wear nothing, because I know there are restrictions on that. But the only time that would ever come into play is like strip clubs or something like that.
Yeah, and maybe it's a case where private businesses have to be more explicit about that kind of thing. But there are at least some cases where, like, say, it's a private, say it's like a private school or something, or it's like the closest thing that someone has to go for education. Like, it's not a college thing. It's not.
So you're talking about a situation. You're talking about a situation where they're basically being forced to go to somewhere where it's a monopoly. Basically,
yeah.
There's not another school for like 100 miles.
Yeah, there's not another school for 100 miles, and they are trying to enforce something that is not only unnecessary, but something that actually is deteriorating to the student's health. or yeah, it's
How many
situation
Well,
like that.
first, I think you would have to provide proof that not wearing an article of clothing is deteriorating to someone's health. But beyond that, I think that would have to be up to the courts because that's a situation where I honestly don't know.
Well, this is why it shouldn't be a law. Is the thing, because
Right, yeah.
it should
Yeah.
be situational.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Frost, did you want to say something before we read the next paragraph?
I was going to ask, are either of you from Canada? Because I don't
Nope.
know how Canada does like their schooling with.
Well, this is
like
that's what.
That'd be a good question, actually.
because
Yeah, I mean,
here in the U.S., a lot of schooling on which schools you can go to is defined by what area you live in, and normally different areas correspond to a different school. And unless you're going to a private school, you don't really have a choice in that matter.
Right. See, the issue is though, is that the example that Nice was bringing up is probably one that probably only ever really appeared because I'm assuming there are probably areas in like the really northern territories where kids may not be able to choose where they go to school. And I'm not saying I have not experienced Canadian school because I'm not a Canadian. But I would assume there probably is situations like Nice is talking about. So I don't know how they would handle it.
Yeah, I mean that's why I wanted to have someone Canadian here. But let's read this next paragraph. Prohibited grounds of discrimination. For all purposes of this act, the prohibited grounds of discrimination are race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, marital status, family status, disability, and conviction for an offense for which a pardon has been granted or in respect of which a record of suspension has been ordered. Well, that's pretty much what the previous one said.
Yeah, this version of the bill that we found was really short, which is kind of interesting because the debates and everything said that the bill was really long, and it's like either the amendments that were more of a problem were scrapped, or more controversial were scrapped, and or else I don't know what happened to the rest of it.
Can you scroll back up, Andrew? Doll?
Oh, sorry, what did I miss? And I had a cat which was trying to open up the door.
I was just explaining the situation about the version that we found here is kind of short when most of the debates are pointing out that it was kind of long. That bill was longer.
What they were talking about was already existing law, and this would kind of make it more vague and be inconsistent with what previous bills have done. That's what the discussion has been. So if you really want to go and hear what the legal stuff is, you can go and watch the Jordan Peterson one, because you have actually a lawyer talking about the stuff. Do you want to read the criminal code to get into more of the meat of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really
Definition of identifiable group. In this section, identifiable group means any section of the public distinguished by race, color, religion, national or ethnic origin, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or mental or physical disability. Again, why gender expression? Why is that part of that can be discriminated against. Why?
For that, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead first.
The best example I could think of is a guy's exactly like you said before, a guy's wearing a kilt, and then somebody has a problem with that when there's nothing like saying that he can't wear a kilt.
Well,
Yeah,
or something more extreme. The like I was saying before the stream kind of started, like someone someone who is clearly a bigot, drives by someone's house who is trans and shouts their dead name over and over and over again in front of their house every single day in a manner that is clearly harassment. Like, that's like one of the few situations where I could see this actually applying for sure.
There's
Right,
one
but
example.
that actually has a situation. That is a situation where it shows intent because he's repeatedly doing it. He's doing it because he knows that it harms them. Because I mean, how else would you know someone else's original name unless they told you, or if you'd known them for a long time? And if you'd known them for a long time, more than likely you knew that this was something they didn't want to be called anymore. So
Exactly.
there's a very good likelihood that you're doing it with ill intent. So yeah, it would be considered harassment in that case.
Well, here's one example that I have from high school where, they have like the spirit weeks or whatever, and the football team used to wear the cheerleading team's outfit for a whole entire week of school.
Well, that's just stupid in my thought.
Well, let's look at
I'm bringing it up as an example of a case where, like, say they went out to eat or something after school in those outfits, and they were discriminated against in that case. Like, I'm just using it as an example, though.
but see, if you're, I just want to say this, and you can go ahead. I just want to say, definition of identifiable group. Now, if you take gender expression, what defines a gender expression? Like, if gender expression doesn't have any actual definition, then you can just use Tumblr as a definition, and you can have someone as an otherkin, and you have to accept them. Otherwise, you're gonna go to jail because of a hate crime.
Otherkin has nothing to do with gender. That's like not even that's not even a point of contention. And anyone that tries to make that argument,
what's the definition? That's one of the issues around this. What is the what definitions are they working with here?
Yeah, see, that's the problem, is that they could easily just say, "I'm sorry, but I sexually identify as a bear," and you can do nothing.
That doesn't even make sense. Because that has nothing.
That's kind of why there's a problem.
That's kind of
it doesn't make sense. That's why there's a problem. It doesn't make any fucking sense yet. There's a law being made about it.
See, that's why I have an issue with this adding a expression as part of the criminal code.
Here's the thing.
Well, what the
expression or just expression in general?
Expression.
Because it says gender identity or expression. So are they applying the word gender to both those words, or is there a caveat where you could use any form of expression to?
Yeah, that's another good point.
Again, this is why there's an issue, because it's very vague.
And I mean, and to be fair, this entire bill has that vagueness problem. I mean, race, like some people want to call Islam a race.
Right.
What happens with if Rachel Dolezal is going to be Canadian? Is she suddenly does her expression now is her transracial expression a thing as well? Does that count?
Yeah. Well, and there's also
okay.
extreme situations like that.
Like oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I was just gonna go ahead.
Like the way in which it's worded, it's hard to see like precisely what they mean. It's not like they have different sections and they're like color or racial identity or expression. It's like they have a long list of things and then it's like or expression. So it's basically like depending on how you look at it, you could apply the word expression to everything that came before it, or you could just apply it to gender. But there's like,
Well, that's
there's
really the
no,
catch-22, isn't it? If they say gender expression, and then they don't define what gender expression is, like they had like the list of like 22 like official genders or something like that, and like people were suggesting things outside of the 22 genders, and like, well, why doesn't that count? Why doesn't that count? Why doesn't that count? It's like, what criteria decided for those 22 and nothing else? And so would only some genders be protected under the bill and others not be? If they don't define it, that would kind of fit the logic more internally, but it would also cause even more problems, because then it's like, oh, I'm hydrometrosexual all of a sudden. Like what? Like what is that even? Like, well, that still counts because I'm calling it something.
Yeah, I define it this way, which is, protected by law, so you have to honor it. It's like, fuck off.
it's also like what do they define as an offense as well? Because there's no hint of that. Like,
Yeah.
what would be considered a criminal offense in this case? It's like
They would literally have to
anything.
go by a case-by-case basis whenever someone gets pulled into the fucking jails and goes through court, I would guess, which is kind of fucking ridiculous because it shouldn't have to go that far before we realize, hey, this is fucked up.
I mean, we've already had things like that, like the Peterson case.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a really fucked up case.
Well, the thing with him is they actually warned him. This was before the bill actually passed, so they're officially gonna vote. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but anyways, the thing was that they warned him, even though he has tenure, and say what you will about Jordan Peterson, even though you agree or disagree. Him saying that I don't want to use these pronouns, these made up pronouns that someone else made up, saying what kind of language I am allowed to, or what am I allowed to say, basically, how to talk to other people. They won him twice. They have actually freezed him out. So right now they can't actually do much because he has tenure. But they've tried everything in their power. But now, if this bill passes, they can actually jail him. He refuses to use. If some dipshit otherkin whatever wants to use they, zer, whatever, and on purpose just takes his class just to fuck with them, he can go to jail just because he doesn't use the preferred pronoun this dipshit wants you to use.
You know what makes this even worse? I just realized is this bill does not specifically mention that only trans people are going to be able to do this shit. Like it's
Exactly.
not
Yeah,
only
it's
trans
like
people that are going to be able to be like, hey, you misgendered me, you didn't use my pronouns. Literally everyone. So trolls can literally random any people can just be like, this guy misgendered me, he called me sir, go to jail.
It's
Well,
like
yeah,
the whole
well, if it's
entire.
that's probably the biggest issue of all with the bill is it enables liars and the perpetually offended to basically define the rules. I mean, it's like this is one of the issues I even have with something like driving, where it's like, no, it's not technically the law that makes the rules of the road, it's the person cutting you off who forces you to do something that makes the rules, and this is basically a legal form of that.
Uh-huh.
So who? I mean,
Yeah,
we're gonna
and-
see more. We're gonna see more Jordan Petersons after this.
Yeah,
And we're going to see a lot
uh,
more people going. We're going to see a lot more, like, excuse my French, but cishet people. We're going to see a lot more cishet people going, he misgendered me, go to jail, even though they're not actually trans.
Well, yeah.
So, like, they
yeah.
say this law is to protect trans people, but there are going to be a lot of non-trans people just because
It's
they
kind of
can.
like the law in California with the what was it for the rape cases, with how
Yep.
schools process it.
Title 9.
Yep, this reminds me a lot of that. It basically completely disregards due process.
Yeah, it basically it's that, and that's the main issue around it. It's like it's
let's read the last.
let's
Let-
continue on. Sorry.
Let's read the last part and yeah, summarize. Evidence that the offense was motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression, or any other similar. Isn't expression enough? You have or any other similar factor. Like,
So
what
now
the
bias is
fuck?
illegal? It's illegal to be biased now?
Apparently.
Well, that,
This is what it
gee,
literally says.
So
everyone.
anyone that gets it in their head that they were fired from a job because they're gay now could just go, hey, they fired me because I'm gay, even though they don't have any evidence to back them up.
Yeah.
Beat this fucking vague.
It's literally gonna take someone. It's literally gonna take someone abusing the fucking law before this thing is gonna get overturned. That's how far it's gonna go.
Well, either that, or this is basically a ploy to start to get more business for Canadian lawyers.
Maybe, I don't know.
I wouldn't be
And-
surprised if they were in on it.
I mean, the amount of lawsuits that are going to is going to exponentially increase after this.
Like, remember, people say Americans love suing people. I mean, Canadians are kind of becoming like that in a way.
This is a situation where I hope the Canadian courts are somewhat similar to the U.S. Supreme Court, where they can just say this law is unconstitutional bullshit.
And if you've ever watched Diana Davidson's videos, which I kind of suggest actually, because I mean she might even be covering this actually. She actually follows the Canadian courts and is a Canadian herself, and this doesn't bode well in the Canadian legal environment. Like, this is for example, Canada is one area where the battered wife syndrome is making headway, which basically says wives can kill their husbands.
Yeah, Canada has. I don't know what's been up with Canada lately. They've been passing a lot of things that are. I understand that a lot of people are progressive in Canada, so to speak, but now it's just getting downright ridiculous.
Well, I'm fucking downright. I'm fucking progressive, and this is anything but progressive.
Yeah, let's give me a ridiculous scenario, because looking at the Human Rights Act and combine it. Let's say you identify as whalekin. You go into a public swimming pool and say this swimming pool is too small for you because you identify as a whale, and therefore you feel discriminated against. Is gonna stop you from suing that shit.
See,
Or
the thing,
going into a restaurant saying, I'm cowkin, and you slaughtering my brethren and putting them on plates of food as steak is very offensive to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, maybe this is one
Why is this conversation
one save thing for the bill, like this is ultimately the thing that's going to save Canada, is a lot of people are going to come out of the woodwork now, basically testing the limits of the law, and either are going to get slapped down or get what they want, and there's going to be massive protests. Like, this is the kind of thing that affects everyone, not just social justice warriors.
Why does this keep
Yeah,
getting...
that's what I was saying. It's gonna take really abusing this shit before it gets overturned.
That's going to be really interesting.
Like, if you had the perfect example of a slippery slope, this is it. This is actually it. Because if you by law don't define anything meticulously, you can exploit that shit to no end.
Yeah, not only that, but talking about exploiting the law, if there is in fact this mass of people that are like, hey, this is legal now, let's go fucking do it. Once that law is overturned, is there going to be any repercussions for the people that took advantage of that shit? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. Like, this is going to be another interesting case where maybe false reporting suddenly comes back in play.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting because there's very little precedent for people doing something and then getting jailed for it after it's been made illegal to do.
Yeah, like, well, and one thing that's definitely going to happen is the courts are going to become over encumbered with cases.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like the current situation with sexual assault cases, even.
Yeah.
Or drugs.
There's just so many that courts can't really deal with them properly.
And I mean, that's one thing that's probably going to happen is a lot of cases are going to get ignored because it's going to be like, look, we're fighting. You know, I have 25 cases about misgendering on the docket. Like, do you really think we have time to cover yours as well?
What I don't like is that they're trying to classify this as a human rights act.
Yeah, well, there's already been some criticism of the Council on Human Rights. Again, like Diane Davidson covers this, where they aren't completely unbiased themselves when it comes to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are dozens of senators approve this crap, and they had people telling them, like spoon feeding them, several hours of this stuff, and they didn't see that this was a really bad bill.
Some of them did I think notice that there could have been, you know, cause for concern, but I don't think they took it seriously.
Yeah, no, even though if they showed,
didn't one of the senators even say like I don't know when asked about the limits of the bill, or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, there was a lot of virtue signaling during the bill because during, I think it was Theron when Theron Wright and Gad Saad was there. One of the senators actually asked them to if they were for genocide for transgender people, and I think they really restrained themselves to say, "Are you fucking idiots?" Because
there was the one during the Jordan Peterson where they were like, one of them was like talking about genocide and shit like that, and then another senator basically just said, I think we should be more respectful and obviously people in here are not advocating genocide. So maybe
that's what Gad said. No, Gad said that as well. So I think you repeated the question. I can't remember the entire thing of Jordan Peterson, but there were several senators that just didn't understand that this was a stupid freaking bill. Because if that, because I just hope that shit doesn't spread, because right now I just can't understand, like, people with an IQ over 60 can say yes to this kind of bill without any amendment whatsoever. Even if you said had some concerns that it was too vague, you had a lawyer and several people with experience that had cause of concern, and you just fucking ignore it.
Because
think
fuck
there's
It
something.
just baffles my mind.
I think there's a level of detachment when it comes down to things like Parliament and the judicial system, because a
Yeah.
lot of them aren't affected by this shit. They don't have to deal with it. All they do is get the cases and pass judgment. They aren't actually the people being charged with dumb shit because they said something someone else took offense to.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the situation, and this goes for the U.S. and the U.K. as well, is, you have career politicians, and career politicians aren't necessarily aren't necessarily going to actually be affected by because they're the ones making the rules.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
just another thing they can look back and say, "Oh, I did this good thing. Please vote for me."
Well, it's
Well,
it's,
when you-
it's
when you-
interesting because in this time, it's not a good thing. It's like
It's like
these
only
people are
the
going to be voted out. We're going to see "Make Canada Great Again." Unfortunately,
I certainly hope so. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, and as I said, I have Sweden as my neighbor, so I hope.
Sweden has its own
And
well, didn't this kind of shit come from Sweden?
some of it, yes.
I think so. I'm not sure. Well, that shit is just retarded. If I'm gonna start talking about Sweden, I just lose my mind.
Sweden.
This entire thing is it just sums up feels before reals. You can't sum this up in a better way, where you can have gender expression or expression in general, and quote unquote the last in the criminal, a gender identity or expression or any other similar factor be a criminal conduct, a criminal code that makes it illegal. You can't just say, oh, because someone feels to be a certain group that only exists in their mind, you can be fucking jailed because you somehow offended them.
Yeah, well, it's just all too chaotic. Like,
It's you can't use moral relativism, which is this is where each individual has a subjective reality, and push it onwards towards people to behave what they want to after their morals, because if they don't feel offended or you hurt the feelings, you have to abide or be at their mercy, because if you don't behave, you get punished.
well, certainly not
That's
for law,
what
certainly not for law, and that's exactly the reason why this kind of shit shouldn't be a law. This is why there's a ton of controversial issues that just shouldn't be passing through any legislative body at all.
Yeah, because you can't have a law based on moral relativism, which is extremely subjective. You can't when you don't even define those kind of moral relativism. When you can't even define them, there are no limits to it. So you can basically put everyone in jail. Infractions.
I think the only time that these people looking to pass this law are going to get any sense when it comes to it is when it starts affecting them.
Oh yeah.
And it's
Well,
sad
that's
it's
the
gonna have to
that's the
get to
one
Like,
thing.
like if someone walks up to one of these senators and says, "Hey, you misgendered me."
That's the one thing that people should be doing is they should be taking they should be taking these people to court.
It's like remember that incident with the woman in Lawrence Southern where she's like, "Well, you misgendered me, and I'm legally a man," and she didn't have anything to say, and it's like she never once considered that it could happen to her, that she could be
Yep.
that person.
That phase is basically wasted from GTA 5. Yeah, let's put it if is gonna backfire to them in a major way. What if a gender fluid goes up to them and during the conversation switches genders several times, then they have misgendered that person several times, and you can put them in jail.
Yeah.
Well,
They
and
should
even
have a
then,
stick.
even then, it becomes even worse. Where suddenly, someone tries to pass a law that that would threaten that would lead to situations of someone misgendering someone else, like just by the course of that law. Suddenly, those lawmakers can go to jail because they supported an action that would misgender someone.
Yep.
Domestic violence cases, for instance.
Oh yeah, like domestic violence would be a huge one.
It's like they
Yeah,
arrest.
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
They arrest the most manly looking perpetrator for a domestic violence case, and he's like, "Well, I identify as a female, and you misgendered me and arrested me without probable cause." But forget
And you
that
touched
in
me
the
all over my chest, and that's where my breasts are.
but the cop is just working by the book, so he's arresting the person he assumes to be male in accordance with domestic violence laws.
Yep.
I mean, there's all types of ways that this could backfire just simply because of all of the gendered legislation that's already on the books.
Yeah, pretty much. It's
fucking stupid.
That's how you can summarize it. I think we pretty much covered it. We went through the bill. I mean, do
isn't it
you
just
guys
so
have any?
annoying? I mean, isn't it just so annoying? Like at this point, they keep trying this crap over and over again, and we end up preaching to our own choirs again, repeating the same points over and over again, and it's like there hasn't
When
been
are people
any
going to
new,
realize this shit?
yeah, there hasn't been any new rhetoric put out there since I would say 2005, 2000 or
That's
2015,
the insane
2016.
thing.
It's the same points
That's
over
what
and over.
Lacey Green acts what was Kekistan, so something's changing.
Wait, what now?
Well,
No, Lacey Green's being a fucking huckster and trying to find a new audience. But
yeah. Well, we can talk about this often. So, last thoughts. I'm gonna go through one. Knight, go ahead and say your last thoughts on
I just
this
said my last
topic.
I just said my last thoughts.
Okay. Frost.
I pretty much said my piece on this.
All right, Archon.
Yeah, basically, like, I highly wouldn't recommend, abusing this law because, like, I don't think that'd be an ethical thing to do is to take advantage of a law. But I mean, like,
No,
if
abuse the
that's what
law.
it comes to, right? If that's what it comes down
Abuse
to,
this law until it overwhelms the courts and they have to take it down.
It's
Well-
a form of protest.
Pretty much.
yeah, but like, if that's what it takes to fucking get this law to like be realized, then maybe it needs to be done. Like, shit. Because, like,
Yeah, if that's
I
the
don't
only
know.
thing. Yeah, well, my thoughts is you can't dictate moral relativism to let it dictate objective reality, which is the closest thing we can have as a society, as having objective things as the social contracts, which are the laws, and you can't change them that to be subjective and have no definitions. That's like saying for everyone else 2 + 2 is 4, but since I'm a special little snowflake, 2 + 2 equals 33. Like you can't do that shit. So those are pretty much my thoughts. Do you have anything to shill? Your Twitters, anything?
Just read the description. All of our Twitters are going to be there. Check it out.
All right. Anyways, thank you guys for watching and see you guys next time. Bye.